Hello, good morning. It's a beautiful day. Thank you for making time to be with us here on the AM show. Now, the Foundation for Security and Development in Africa, FOSTA, is alarmed and worried by the unemployment rates released by the Ghana Statistical Service under the Labor Statistics Report. Now, the Statistical Service says 25% of young people between 15 and 35 were not in employment, education, or training. FOSTA is, among other things, asking the National Youth Employment Strategy to address this issue of youth unemployment on a long-term and comprehensive basis. This morning, Theodora Anti, Executive Director of FOSTA, joins us for a conversation on this. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining the program, ma'am. Trust you're doing well.
Yes, good morning, and I am doing very well, thank you.
Right. Let's delve straight into the issues here. The statistics are terrible. Okay, we know how things have projected over the years. There were so many interventions that came into place to ensure that we will be out of the woods by now when it comes to unemployment. But it appears that the numbers keep rising, as we've seen with the latest Statistical Service report. You are concerned. You are actually suggesting, and I'm reading from your release, that urgent short-term measures with long-lasting effects be taken. Run us through these short-term measures that you hope government will take.
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers as well. I will run you through some of them, but of course, we all need to contribute towards that. But our concern is based on the security effect and impact of youth unemployment. Not youth, but youth unemployment. The situation is a scary one and an alarming one in a time when security in a sub-region of West Africa is so chaotic, and we have a lot of challenges with security. And the recent UNDP journey to extremism points youth unemployment as the primary factor for radicalization and participation in extremist groups, is the primary factor. And so at a time when things are hard and we are having a lot of young people, as high as 25%, 1 out of every 4 young people not in education, not in training, not in employment in our country, is a very worrying phenomenon. And we think that if we don't do anything about it, if we don't take intentional measures to arrest that situation, definitely that number will be going up next year, and we will not be in a very good situation. And so we have also been working, promoting technical vocational education. We have been advocating for more investment in that sector. And we acknowledge that government has done, and governments over the years, of course, have done a lot to reform the sector, to improve the sector. And I mean, we have over 34 TVET institutions refurbished in recent times, but we are saying that that is not enough. That reformation process has been too slow, and we need to do a lot more. We need to invest a lot more into the technical vocational sector. We understand that in that sector, when young people or people who graduate from that sector are almost instantly employed. And so if we focus on that sector, we are very likely to churn out more or higher youth employment numbers. And we are also looking at that sector. We are proposing some short courses, and thus some of those short-term, but with long-term effect courses that will help. Some short courses that will help people acquire some short-term skills that they can build upon, but will give them some employment in the very near future. And definitely, we also need to look at the education and industry, the bridge between the education and industry. There has been the challenge for so long about the mismatch between the education sector and the industry sector. And we need to look at that. We believe that a youth unemployment policy will be able to fix that problem, or a youth unemployment strategy, contextualizing our situation, knowing who we are, where the future of work is going, between now, 5 years, 10 years, where is the future of work for Ghana? That's the talk now. Where is the future of work? What are we going to be consuming more of? Or what are we going to be more interested in as a nation? Are we going to look more at our ICT sector? Just yesterday, I saw a beautiful young girl in SHS producing some airplane or something like that. Are we going to look at that sector as our future? Are we intensifying our agriculture sector because we are always going to eat? Are we intensifying our services sector? What is the future and how are we matching that with education and training that we are churning out our young people? So we believe that we need very, very deliberate efforts to be able to reduce the numbers. From next year going, we should not be seeing such high numbers again.
Do
We should
you
be seeing those
see,
numbers reduced.
sorry, but do you see any of these deliberate efforts that you're talking about? Are you getting a sense that we're on the right path? Because some of these things that you've mentioned, for example, STEM education, the government has introduced that. You just spoke about TVET education and the drive government is on to ensure that a lot of people are trained with technical skills. We have the Youth Employment Authority, we have other interventions, youth in agric, and so many of these things. So the deliberate effort you're talking about, do you see it happening?
We see the effort, but how deliberate it is, or is it that it will change? It will change the situation is what we don't see. So, like you mentioned, we have seen that an institution like the YEA has spent over 1 billion in the last 3 years on youth employment. Why are the figures so high when you hit the streets? We have seen that NAPCO trained 100,000 young people, and per their own reports, about 34,000 of them have jobs now. Why are the numbers so high when you hit the streets? And so the efforts are great, good interventions, national entrepreneurial innovation plan, good interventions. But are we implementing these things to change the situation? Are we implementing them efficiently and effectively? We did a research some time ago that showed that a lot of these interventions are being, let me say, it's political party youthful soldiers that are benefiting from some of these interventions. And you have one person benefiting from YEA, benefiting from NAPCO, the same person. And so when the figures are churned out, they look huge, but on the ground, it's almost insignificant. And that is what is at play.
But what did you also discover, sorry to interject, in that research you just referenced, what also did you discover about the level of training they receive? Because, yes, giving it to a politically aligned person is one thing, but are they receiving that training that allows them to be independent of government after the training? Are they being made entrepreneurial enough? Do they have the requisite knowledge and skills? Did your research focus on that?
That is another problem, because most of these young people, mostly political party projects, when they enter these things, they don't even participate. They just end up getting the benefits and they are off to another one. So most of them on the payroll are not even participating. We heard of NAPCO, great intervention, great idea, but how many of them really got jobs? How many of them really got offices? How many of them really got opportunities to work? Most of them went to sit in offices and never did anything. Most of them never even got posted. I know a few people who never ever got posted. Even though they were part of the 100,000 people, even though they were being paid every month, they didn't get posted. They didn't get jobs. And so the quality of those training it has a lot.
It's questionable for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, how will you measure, 10 being the highest, how will you measure government's efforts? Not only a policy as a document, but actual effort in ensuring that unemployment is dealt with strategically?
That's a difficult question because if you measure based on the interventions that have been put so far, you know that 85% of top tax go to youth and youth employment agency, for instance. 85%, that's a huge amount that goes to them. So when you look at the phase of interventions that are being put in place, you can give them 8/10. But when you look at the implementation of those policies, real implementations of those policies, these recent statistics speak to it. It speaks to what we are doing, whether we are doing it well or we are not doing it well. It brings out the reality on the ground. And with that, you give maybe 1/10 or 2/10.
Right. We had the finance minister a while ago speak to young people and say, look, don't look for jobs in the government sector. There are absolutely no jobs. You must be entrepreneurial. You must look for other opportunities. And considering that, and considering all these interventions we've mentioned, which are government related or government sponsored, and based on what the minister himself said, we know that there is some level of private sector participation, but should we be looking at giving a chunk of even these things? Talk about the training, for example, because if it's in private hands, I mean, I doubt that it will be as politically or partisan as we see it to be currently, based on your research and others. Should we be looking at probably a very large chunk of these interventions going into private sector, private hands? Do you believe that we will see better numbers if we do that?
So after that research we did, we started advocating for a more efficient system of selecting some young people for some of these interventions. We saw a few of these institutions using private partners to do the selection over time. It went well for a year or two, but I'm sure we've gone down the drain again. So private sector works. But just last week I heard the private sector, that is corporate Ghana, complaining bitterly about those three taxes that were posted and how that tax is going to impact. And I heard that just right after the statistical service brought out there, and my heart, because this is a private sector that is employing and that will employ, and yet they are all crumbling. They have threatened that they are closing down because those three levies will bring them down. They will lay off more people. Even their gross is being taxed. So how are these private sectors going to fare? And that is why we are saying that if we don't do anything about this now, we are going to be in deep trouble by next year. We have, I mean, like I said, with regards to the security sector, this is somebody, as we always say, we are sitting on a ticking bomb, and knowing also that we are having elections next year. These are the situations that feed vigilantism. These are the situations that feed extremism. And so a lot more, government must do a lot more. And let me also just mention, for those who doubt it, I've mentioned this in a few places and they asked me to bring the evidence. But young people now, yes, the minister was right, they shouldn't look to the public sector because young people are paying to get jobs in the public sector. People are paying between 9,000 to 15,000 to get jobs in the health sector, to get jobs in the security, to get jobs in the public sector. When windows are open, you have to pay. And if you don't pay, you will not get the job. You watch your brother or your sister who have that money pay and get the job. And so all the public sector, and it's supposed to be the biggest creator of jobs for our people. So how much can the private sector do when they don't have the enabling environment to do that? So a lot depends on our governments.
I'm not going to sit here to pretend that you're the only one who feels the degree or the level of seriousness of this matter, because we sit here every day, we speak to people Take Galamsey, for example, and how a lot of unemployed people are getting involved, making the fight more difficult, and also the threat of terrorism, and how we've been told over the years that unemployment is fertile ground for terrorists to begin work, indoctrinating, providing the needs of these people and getting them on their side. So in wrapping up, I'll just like you to send that message to those responsible for making things work in this country. If you had 2 minutes to send them a direct message, what will it be?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And it will be that we are sitting on a time bomb. We will be having more young people. Now we have around 60% of our population being young people. This number will increase steadily over the years, and we'll have more young people. And if we don't do anything about that, not about the young people, I always say, but about the situation of youth unemployment, it will blow up in our faces. It will blow up in our faces. We have Mali, we know Mali is burning. We have Burkina Faso that has over 80% of its country given to extremists and terrorists. And we have Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, all surrounding us, all under attack from violent extremists. We are not safe. We are not a golden country. It's not that it cannot happen in Ghana, but we must do the right things. We must do the right things to make sure that we protect Ghana, we protect our people. And most of all, I employ that we don't politicize youth employment opportunities. We don't politicize them, and we don't commercialize them. People should not be paying to get jobs. It is so wrong. It is so wrong. And those are grievances that push people into terrorism and things like that. We should not commercialize nor politicize. These interventions, we admit, are great and should be done effectively, should be done efficiently. The money we are pumping into these youth employment interventions, we should see the figures, we should see the numbers we churn out, and not just some figures, cooked figures that when we hit the ground are so different from what we see on the papers. So both as a people, we must demand accountability from our leaders, from our institutions. We must be checking this NAPCO. Who is benefiting? Why? Who is benefiting? How much are they investing? Are they investing the right figures? How much really is going to that? And where is the rest of the money? We must demand accountability. Young people must demand accountability because this is about them. And we must also, our leaders must learn to do the right thing. We should care for the young people and care for our country. Thank you.
Dora WRT is Executive Director of FOSTA, and they have been raising concerns about the latest unemployment statistics from the Ghana Statistical Service and how that could lead to security issues in the country. FOSTA is the Foundation for Security and Development in Africa. You're watching the AM show. Benjamin Akako will be joining me shortly, and we get interactive with you. Do stay.